This pre-built keyboard is honestly among the best you can get your hands on without spending an absurd amount of money. At $130, the Nuphy Halo75 is a crazy good value for what it's offering. It has a 75% layout, which is my personal favorite, having used various different form factors. The dedicated function row is super convenient, but the build itself still remains quite compact. The hot swap switches mean you can easily upgrade the board in the future, though the Night Breeze leader switches are really nice for both typing and gaming. A couple months back, I reviewed the Halo65 from Nuphy, and this board is essentially the exact same, just with a larger form factor. At the time, I honestly thought I'd stay with the smaller 65% layout, but aside from gaming, it's just not as practical for my uses. Though my configuration had Gateron red switches, which I like, but in my opinion just aren't as good as these Night Breeze ones. In the box, along with the paperwork, is an accessory kit with a 1.5 meter USB cable, a dual keycap switch puller, a bunch of extra pastel colored keycaps, and then one of each switch that they offer for the board. Having these switches included is actually a nice addition because it gives you the chance to see if you like any of the other ones, so you can go and order a new set. While I definitely think the accented keycaps do look nice and can really make your setup pop, for mine and the aesthetic I'm going for, I prefer to just stick with the simple white-black color scheme. I chose the white version of the Halo65, but this time around went with the matte black and think it was definitely the right choice. It's such a sleek design and complements my desktop extremely well. With the 75% layout, as I mentioned, you get the full function row, but in addition, there's also the arrow keys, as well as home, and page up and down. The top frame is made out of aluminum and the bottom portion an ABS plastic. The top portion is all matte with a glossy logo, then the bottom half has this lined design. On each of the four corners are rubber feet to prevent you from scratching up your desk if you don't use a desk pad. Even though the sound difference is subtle, I do think it is actually better to type on one. There's two height adjustable feet as well, but for me, the shortest option just isn't far enough up from the desk to type on comfortably. As this is more of a budget oriented board, it's not going to have the heft of a fully aluminum case and does feel cheaper than something like the Keychron Q1. Though once it's sitting on your desk, it's not like it's going to be sliding around anywhere. While Nuphy does sell a wrist rest, I personally don't feel the need to use one and think the height of the board is perfect for both typing and gaming. I've never once suffered wrist strain when working for long hours, but it's probably not a bad idea to use one. If you want to pick it up, it's just $29, which honestly isn't a bad price and does match the board quite well. The PBT keycaps that come stock with the board are actually quite nice. They feel very high quality and have a smooth texture to them. This could be a con for gaming, but I really haven't noticed myself slipping on them ever. The F and J keys both have that textured uplift, which you'll see on basically any keyboard, but instead it is 3 dots rather than a straight line, which is a small detail, but honestly, I found it to be way nicer of a feel to position my fingers with. The stock legends are for macOS, which I always love to see as I edit all of my videos on a 16-inch MacBook, but also included are Windows ones if you'd like to swap them out. These aren't shine through though, which is expected being PBT, so if you don't have a light bar, they can be a little hard to read. This is actually one of the reasons that I need to have a light bar in all of my setups. I do like though the way the light shines underneath the keycaps, making for a super clean look. The switches I chose to go along with the board are Nuphy's custom Night Breeze linears. I honestly really like them, but have actually had some quality issues with all of them not feeling very consistent. About a quarter of the switches have this very mushy feeling and don't have the same click as the other keys. They all still work completely fine, but this is definitely something worth noting. I did reach out to Nuphy about this, and they told me they tell their team, but didn't give me any other information about this, nor how prevalent it was. That aside, I do really like using these switches as they have a consistent, smooth feel that are quick enough to make fast movements in games, while still providing enough feedback to be enjoyable to type on. While I have gotten used to using linear switches, I've noticed I make far less typos when using these as compared to the Gateron Reds. These come pre-lubed, making for that smooth feel, but the stock stabilizers in the board are quite impressive. Large keys like the spacebar, as well as backspace and enter, don't have any rattle whatsoever. Underneath the spacebar, in addition to the stabilizers, Nuphy also has silicone rubber padding that helps to further dampen that sound signature, preventing any ping or springy sound. This is really appreciated because there's a lot of keyboards around this price point and even higher that don't invest enough into stabilization. That all said, let's actually take a listen to these Night Breeze switches with the Nuphy Halo75. The Halo75 has 3 different connection modes: wireless over either the 2.4 GHz dongle or Bluetooth, and then wired over a USB cable. When on the wireless setting, if you want to connect over the dongle, first plug it into your PC and then hit FN and 4. If instead you want to connect over Bluetooth, you're going to need to hold FN and either 1, 2, or 3 for a total of 3 seconds to enter its pairing mode. Do note that this is not the shortcut shown in the included paperwork, which incorrectly states that you need to press FN, Q, W, E, or R. I have no idea why this is, but it has caused a lot of unnecessary confusion when trying to test out the board. Me personally, I prefer to use a USB cable, mostly because I think it looks best in my setup, but for gaming this will technically give you a lower response time. I'm using a black coiled cable from Highstar and have had a really good experience with it. I find in addition to the aesthetics, it's honestly much more convenient just to have the keyboard plugged in always rather than having another device I have to worry about charging. Though the one thing I will say is it's annoying switching from Mac over to PC, having to manually unplug the USB cable and put it into the other device. Obviously, you can use the included USB-C to A cable to connect wired, but any USB-C cable is going to do the job just as well. If you choose to use the board entirely wireless, you can expect to get around 240 hours from the 4000 mAh battery. However, that number is without lighting enabled, and with the lighting of the board being such a big selling point, it's actually going to drop to around 48 when it's turned on. That's a pretty drastic reduction, and it's also a bummer that the battery life didn't improve whatsoever from the Halo65. Going on their site and comparing, they're still giving you the same exact battery estimates. At the back of the board is a slot where the USB receiver is stored for when it's not in use. There's a magnet inside as well, so throwing the dongle in here is super easy and you never have to worry about it falling out. At the opposite side, you have the USB-C port where you can charge or connect the board wirelessly. The switch next to it allows you to quickly swap what connection mode you're using or completely power off the board. All the way to the right connects it wirelessly, setting it to the middle puts it in wired mode, and then all the way to the left powers it off. You'll see there's another switch to the side, and this is actually to toggle between using macOS and Windows. This is a big improvement from the Halo65, as on there, you had to use a keyboard shortcut in order to change the key mappings, which was honestly just a pain to remember. With the number of shortcuts you have to remember just for lighting alone, it gets a little overwhelming. Now, whenever you want to switch between OSs, it's as simple as just flipping a switch and you're good to go. This is a lifesaver for me, as during the day I work on the Mac, but at night I want to also use the keyboard to play some games. I've always kept things pretty simple when it comes to lighting, and it's no different here. I just use a solid blue color to match the aesthetic of my desk and leave it at that. Though if you are a fan of Unicorn Vomit, this keyboard is going to do it all for you. There's north-facing LEDs underneath each of the keys, but also lighting on the strip around the outer casing. This makes for a really unique look, though when just seeing the board in regular use, it's hard to really notice that halo light. There's also this side light in the top left, not named very well, which is used as an indicator for charging, caps lock, etc., but can also be configured just like the rest of the board. So Nuphy Console is the software that you're going to use to configure the lighting on the board, but I've had a lot of problems with it in the past. Right now it is still in beta and only available on Windows, and every time that I've tried it, it's either just been super buggy and clunky or just hasn't opened at all. When trying to film for this video, I literally was not able to open the application. This is a serious problem with how large Nuphy is getting, and the fact that it doesn't even support softwares like VIA is an even bigger problem. Adjusting the backlight is accomplished by pressing FN in the left arrow in order to change the effect, and then FN in the right arrow to change the color. The same configuration is done with both the halo light and side light, with the halo light just differing in the need to press FN H in the arrow keys, or for the side light, FN ? In the arrow keys. There is also additional lighting adjustments that I'm not going to get fully into, but I will leave all of those controls up on screen right now. Wrapping it up, I can easily say the Nuphy Halo75 is the best 75% keyboard I've tried by far. Without breaking the bank, you get an incredible value. The build quality is really good, you have a ton of switch options, great stock keycaps, and a really nice lighting profile. The preloop switches are great for both typing and gaming, and the stabilizers ensure the board is always sounding thocky. Unit, and the fact that Nuphy didn't even offer to replace them. Though besides that, it's hard to really find anything super negative about the board. They have done a really great job with it. As I said in my Halo65 review, I'd keep an eye on Nuphy as they've been constantly releasing new products recently, and I don't see them slowing down. If there's anything I missed or you just want to know, feel free to drop a comment. With that, I've been Cole, and I appreciate you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, but until then, take care.